Hi, I'm Tom Watchman and welcome to my talk for this HLA Medics Academy Summit Medical Education Conference. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you to Shami and the rest of the team for putting this on and inviting me to come and speak. This is a pre-recorded talk, so I'm not actually giving this live in case you hadn't realized, and I'll be on Slack, I think, in the chat. So while I'm talking on this video, you can actually interact with me, give me feedback, ask questions, and I'll try and answer any questions that I can. So I was having a think about what is the most useful thing I can talk about that might be of interest to you and might be of use to you. So I'm kind of stringing a few things together in this talk, but the title of the talk and the aim of the talk is really, how do we solve the problem of learning medicine? And this is what I've been thinking about and looking into for the last 12-13 years since I started medical school. So let me introduce myself. I'm Tom Watchman. I'm a GP, a general practitioner, fully qualified last August, and I work in the Greater Manchester area. I do that 2 days a week, and 5 days a week I work on other projects and live my life really and have other hobbies and interests. And if you want to see me partaking in other hobbies and interests, follow me at Tom Watchman on Instagram. And you can also subscribe to my personal YouTube channel. But what I spend most of my time outside of being a GP doing is creating resources for medical students. And my main project is something called Zero to Finals. And you can find the website at zerotofinals.com. And there's also a YouTube channel, a Twitter page, Facebook and Instagram account, and various other things. A podcast, which is really popular. So what I spend a lot of my time doing is essentially medical education through online resources. I also have various other qualifications like a master's degree in medical education and plenty of postgraduate diplomas in various different topics. So I think I'm in quite a good position to give you some information and some experience about what I think of medical education and how to solve the problem of learning medicine. So in this talk, I'm going to take you through three main parts. Firstly, my experience of going through medical school and learning medicine, and obviously continuing to learn medicine as a postgraduate as well. Secondly, the things that I've learned about learning medicine. So the techniques and tricks and tips that I've learned about how to learn medicine. And hopefully I can give you some practical advice that you could actually take away after this talk and implement into your own studying straight away to improve your results in exams. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about my experience of building a medical education platform that's now used by thousands of medical students. It gets about 4,000 visitors to the website every day. I've got over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, 15,000 plus followers on Instagram, and lots and lots of people are using this resource. So I feel like I've gained a bit of experience about how to build a useful resource for medical students, and I can share some of that with you today. I want to start by talking about my thoughts of two different sides to learning medicine. The first side, which is what medical schools do really well at, is to develop all of these surrounding skills. So this is like interpersonal skills, communication skills, practical skills like doing cannulas or catheters or taking blood tests or doing intimate examinations, clinical reasoning skills, time management, prescribing. All of these things are kind of soft skills that you have to learn through experience and through being on ward rounds, doing small group teaching sessions, being at bedside teaching, going to lectures, having supervisors, and just generally interacting with the world of medicine. But there's a second side to medicine which often seems a bit neglected, and that's just how do you get this vast amount of information, all of these conditions, all of these drugs, all of these guidelines, all of this hard factual information, how do you get it from all these various different resources into your brain to stick so that you can pass your exams? And there's no getting away from the fact that you just have to memorize vast amounts of information in medicine, and it's often not talked about, and I think this is a big problem that needs to be addressed. And in this talk and with my project with Zero to Finals, the main thing I'm trying to do is address this problem of how do you get all of this information into your head. In this talk, I want to give you 3 main takeaways, and these are things that I think you really need to concentrate on when it comes to tackling this problem. Firstly, making notes can be a big waste of time and not very efficient. There's better ways to learn medicine than making notes, and you may be wasting your time and procrastinating by making notes. Secondly, you need to test yourself. Constantly be testing your knowledge, and testing is the most important and the most effective way to learn medicine, or anything in fact. And thirdly, you need to track your learning. Track your testing results, track when you do different topics, and that way you can learn your strengths and your weaknesses and see how you're progressing through the course. So firstly, as promised, let's go through my experience of learning medicine. Well, I want to take you back to my A-levels, because I felt like at A-levels I'd figured out the system, I'd got it all sorted. Essentially what I did was I went onto the website for the exam that I was sitting, let's say A-level biology, and I downloaded all of the past papers. And what I found was that the past papers essentially just reused the same questions again and again, and retested the same facts again and again. So what I did was I downloaded all these past papers, I took out all the questions on each particular chapter of the book for that exam. So let's say you had the cellular biology chapter of the book. I would take all the questions that related to cellular biology from the past papers of the last 10 years and group them all together. Then I would do study sessions where I learnt all the information in the book or studied the information in the book. Then I sat all the past paper questions and kept doing that and tracking my results until I was getting 100% on all of those past paper questions. Then when the exam came round, I went in, the same questions came up, I put the same answers down, and I got 100% in the exams. So I'd really clocked the A-level system, and I felt very confident in my ability to learn things and do well in exams. Then I got to medical school and I realised, hold on, there's almost unlimited information here. There's no book that contains all the stuff you need for your exams. There's no past paper that tells you the same answers and the same questions that are going to come up again and again. And there's no real direction and nothing that I can pin down to say this is how to revise for exams. So I felt a bit lost in medical school, especially initially. So I spent quite a few years trying different tactics to see what would work in the exams. So I tried things like making mind maps, making my own short answer questions and just testing my knowledge. I tried using flashcards, I tried taking other students' notes, I tried using various different textbooks, but I never really felt satisfied with the results that I was getting. I was always, getting a satisfactory or a high satisfactory, but not really pushing as hard as I felt that I needed to and getting the exam results that I felt like I should. But this was a really useful experience because I learned so much about the pitfalls that you can fall into that can lead to you wasting time and not doing as well on your exams. I learned the things that didn't work in terms of exam preparation, and it did give me an idea about what I needed to do going forwards. And then it all culminated in my finals when I put together a revision plan that I was quite happy with. What I'd done is collected notes from various different resources. So there was a book from the Ask Dr. Clark conference that he puts on, and you have a book that contains some basic notes. And I added to that using various different online resources and other people's notes and my own brief notes that I'd collected. Things like Almost a Doctor or OSCE Stop are really good. And I collected these into different topics. So I had a little bunch of notes for cardiology, one for respiratory, one for endocrinology, and so on. I also had a set of short answer questions that I'd made on those notes, and I had a set of MCQ questions in a question book. So I had about 40 MCQ questions for each topic. And at this point, I created a concept called the testing sandwich. And I didn't call it the testing sandwich at the time, but I knew that it would work and I knew it would be effective. And this involves doing the short answer questions for, say, cardiology, then studying the cardiology notes, and then doing the MCQ questions afterwards. So you have this sandwich where you have questions at the start, some revision in the middle, and some questions at the end. And when I would do a study session like this, I would track, really important to track the results that I was getting on the questions at the start and the questions at the end. And that way I could tell, as I was going through and repeating this process over and over again, were my results getting better with time? It also gave me a lot of motivation because I had this tracking table that was almost like a game. So I could fill out more and more of this tracking table and see my progress over time. And this actually led to the best exam results that I got during medical school, and I ended up graduating with honours as a result of implementing this strategy. But I still felt there was a lot missing from the resources available in medical school and a lot of room for improvement. And I wish I had known what I knew at the end of medical school at the start, because I could have been so much more efficient with my learning. And my real desire was to create some resources for medical students so that when they came into first year of medical school, they had the resources I wish that I had, so that they could start doing really well in medical school from the very start and help to solve this problem of trying to get all of this information that you need to learn in 5 years into your brain without so much stress and turmoil and experimentation and all the other headaches that came with trying to learn how to learn medicine. The first step that I undertook in this process was actually to team up with a friend of mine called Matthew Kimberley and create a book called The Medicine Manual. And the idea of this book was to try to create a guide that would help you with all the tactics and strategies you need in order to learn information in medical school most effectively. And this book focused on the 4 E's of learning medicine: being effective, being efficient, being easy, so actually making the process easy rather than hard, and being exam specific. So how do you prepare specifically for exams so that you're under less stress? So these are the 4 E's: effective, efficient, easy, and exam specific, that I focused on in the medicine manual. And this book covers loads of different techniques and strategies that we've both learned over the course of medical school. However, I want to focus on the 3 most important ones that I think everybody should be implementing in terms of learning medicine and not wasting so much time and stress trying to learn for exams. The first one is that you need to be efficient with your learning. A lot of people will spend hours and hours and hours making notes and potentially procrastinating, listening to music, going on Instagram or something similar to that. And then only a very small amount of their time will be spent memorizing that information. The problem is that when you sit your exams, the information is not in your notes in front of you, it's only the things that you know in your brain. So the key is you need to spend as much time as you can memorizing that information. For this reason, I think making notes is really inefficient and not a good strategy for learning medicine. Instead, what I would recommend is finding a resource or a few different resources that give you a really good set of notes that you can learn from straight away. So you only spend a small amount of time actually finding the notes and collecting the notes, and then you spend the maximum amount of time learning and memorizing those notes and that information. The second really important thing that you need to be doing when learning medicine is testing yourself. Try to test yourself as much as you can with MCQs, short answer questions, and any other way that really forces your brain to recall that information. And there's something that I learned on my degree in psychology that's really important and is a very, very well established phenomenon in psychology, and that's called the testing effect. And this essentially says that testing yourself is a way better way of learning information than restudying that information. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of a study that perfectly exemplifies the testing effect, although there's hundreds and hundreds of studies that you can go and read which all show similar results with different methodology. And this is by Rodiger and Carpike from 2006. And they got 120 psychology students, had them study passages, and then they split them into 2 groups. One group had a 5-minute break after studying that passage and then studied the passage again. And the other group had a 5-minute break after studying the passage and then tested themselves on that passage. And then they took all these people and they split them into 3 groups. One group tested themselves on the information after 5 minutes, another group tested themselves on the information after 2 days, and then the final group tested themselves on the information after 1 week. And as you can see from the chart, the people who studied the information twice did a bit better on the test after 5 minutes. But after 2 days or after 1 week, the people who tested themselves on the information did way better on the final test and recalled information better and retained that information better over a longer period of time. And this really highlights to me that if you want to retain that information for a longer time, you need to be testing yourself, because it strengthens those connections and helps you practice what you're going to be doing for the exam. The final thing I would say is you need to track your learning. Track when you learn information and track the testing that you do, the results of the test that you do for that information. And if you want to have some tracking tables, I've put together some tracking tables at zerotofinals.com/tracking, and you can download free Excel or PDF versions of these tracking tables that you can use to start tracking your information across medicine, across all the different specialties in medicine in preparation for your final exams or any of your clinical year exams. But tracking has a really useful effect. Firstly, it shows you where your strengths and your weaknesses are. So if you're getting 98% in cardiology and 10% in renal medicine, you really need to be spending more of your time on renal medicine. And if you're not tracking your results, you may not identify where that strength is and where the weakness is. The second thing is it kind of turns learning medicine into a game. So you're filling out this tracking table and you're trying to increase your scores all the time. And this is very reassuring because it tells you that you're improving, and it also gives you a sense of accomplishing something. If you don't track your learning, you may feel like you're doing all this work, but you're not actually getting anywhere. When you track it, you fill out this tracking table and it gives you a sense of achievement and accomplishment, and is really motivating. Thirdly, having a tracking table and tracking your learning makes sure that you hit everything that you need to know for your exams. If you never revise any neurology for your final year exams, you probably won't do well if any of the questions on neurology come up in the exam. So having a tracking table means that you know that you're covering all the key points you need for those exams. So as I was coming to the end of foundation training, I felt like I'd created a solution to the problem of how to learn medicine. I'd written this book about the techniques of how to learn medicine, but I hadn't created a solution for the what to learn. And people always said, well, okay, so I can test myself, I can collect some notes together, but what do I learn? Where do I go for all this information? And so that's where Zero to Finals was born. And the idea with Zero to Finals is to really create one resource that you can go to that has notes on all the topics you need to remember for your exams. And it's not going to be able to teach you everything. It's not going to cover all the information that it's possible to know in medical school. And it's not going to teach you things like communication skills or interpersonal skills or team working or the practical skills that you need to learn by actually doing cannulas and blood tests and so on. But it can give you the key information such as, what's the pathophysiology, what are the diseases you need to know, what are the latest guidelines for this. And that was the aim with Zero to Finals, is really to create a set of notes that you can start learning from straight away in order to do as best as you can in the exams. And avoid having to create your own notes and your own resources, which can be a real waste of time. So I've been working on Zero to Finals for the past 5 years, and front and center of everything I do is how can I make it easy to take all the information you need to know for medical school and put it into your brain and memorize it. And this involves avoiding the hassle of having to collect information from lots of different resources. So I want to put everything in one place. Learning the most efficiently, so trying to make things very simple, not complicated. You don't have to keep looking up different definitions and going to different areas. It's all just in one place explained simply. It's presented in multiple different ways. So there's written notes, there's YouTube videos on the same topic, there's podcasts on the same topic, there's flashcards on the same topic. And all of these information put together reinforces the same message over and over again so you can learn most effectively. And the idea is just to make it super easy for students to learn things. And I think if you're going to be a medical educator, my advice to you would be to try and really put yourself in the shoes of the student and think about what's going to be the most straightforward and easy way for them to learn that information. Try not to make it hard for the students to grasp things. Don't try and make it too complicated to make yourself seem clever. Just create the easiest resources or the easiest learning experience for the students, and they'll be so grateful for that. So what are my key take-home points from this talk? Well, firstly, don't waste your time in medical school. Think about being the most efficient you possibly can. So instead of making a massive set of notes and spending only a tiny amount of time learning those notes, focus on spending the maximum amount of time memorizing and learning information. Secondly, test yourself. Constantly be testing yourself on the information. And I think the testing sandwich is a good model to use in order to learn any kind of topic. And thirdly, track your learning and track your results. So thank you so much for coming to this talk. I'll hang around in the Slack chat as long as it's open, and hopefully I can answer any of your questions or interact with you and just get your feedback. That would be great to hear. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. You can find more from me similar to this on my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search Tom Watchman. Obviously there's Zero to Finals if you want to check that out. And I look forward to hearing more from you. Take care.